Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Talk Spicy. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. Thank you for joining me. Wherever you are joining me, rate the show, comment, agree, disagree, but whatever you do, keep it spicy. 5-star ratings are appreciated. If you're joining me on my YouTube channel, let's make sure that we like and subscribe and leave comments and all the stuff that gets the algorithm doing those dances. You know how it goes. We are coming off our first official college football weekend, and it was a fantastic weekend. As far as my group of 5, group of 6 FCS selections, I was 4-2. Quite honestly, should have been 6-0 because I knew in my heart that South Dakota State was going to win, and I just let my brain do too much thinking and took Colorado State to cover or possibly win outright by a narrow margin, which I kind of knew was going to be a loss anyway. But I was banking on the math in my head and all this other stuff, and I should have stopped doubting South Dakota State. But trust me, I will not doubt you, Jacks, anymore. Not that you don't have an extremely tough schedule or really good opponents in the way of you winning a national championship. But I will not doubt the Jacks. You'll hear me talk a lot about them this week on all of the places that you can find me this week. So make sure that Wednesday morning on The Athletic, you check out my group of 5 and FCS picks. If you like to do a little bit of wagering, make sure you check that out Wednesday morning when that comes out for The Athletic. We get the NFL back this week, which is the start of the NFL, and now we'll be full-fledged, high-powered football from here until, the end of time. Not really, but it'll feel like it's great. But, with the first week of college football in the books, I thought it was interesting to really think about narratives and how narratives can shape a team or an individual. Many times people will dismiss the type of power that the media or social media has on shaping narratives and the perceptions of people and of teams. And I think we do a terrible disservice to ourselves when we doubt the power of media. For instance, on Sunday night when Florida State took on Notre Dame, there were several storylines that ended up playing out that don't really actually tell the truth. You would think that coming into that game, Florida State was going to get blown out by Notre Dame. If you looked around, nobody had a lot of faith that Florida State was going to be able to hang around with Notre Dame. And so Florida State goes out there and hangs around with Notre Dame, has Notre Dame on the ropes. I'm not saying probably should have won, but definitely had Notre Dame on the ropes. And if they had won, no one could be surprised because of the way the game unfolded. Yet, coming out of the game, it went from, well, Notre Dame's going to blow Florida State out to, man, Florida State struggled with a subpar or an average Notre Dame team. Well, that's the narratives taking over. That's the narratives taking over and changing the perception of what actually happened. Notre Dame is a contending team. Notre Dame, if they run the table, will be in the college football playoff. So the fact that Florida State had them on the ropes, the fact that Florida State was in position to win, is only credit to Florida State. Now, I don't play the moral victory game, so they still lost. But Florida State, while I wouldn't say they're back, and I'm a Florida State fan for as much as of one team as I'm a fan of, while I wouldn't say they're back, and I still have a lot of issues with Mike Norvell, or at least how Mike Norvell is perceived. I think that you can give credit where credit's due and say that Florida State played their butt off on Sunday. But that's how narratives work. They try to change your mind as far as what you believe and what you don't believe. And so what they want you to now believe is that Notre Dame wasn't that good in the first place. And that's just unfair to the performance that Florida State had. But there are more storylines that came from that game. Another storyline that I thought was really interesting was the fact that they led you to believe that Notre Dame's these narratives that came out led you to believe that Notre Dame's defensive coordinator did a bad job. That their defensive coordinator's game plan was bad. Well, he had all these running lanes, and he didn't adjust. He didn't come down and take away the running lanes. Well, I'm pretty sure his game plan didn't involve people missing tackles, didn't involve people, letting wide open wide receivers run down the field. I'm pretty sure his game plan didn't involve people busting. See, here's the thing about when you coordinate an offense or you coordinate a defense, and all of you people who've never done it, you have no clue. And I know that every time you tell people, well, if you've never done it or if you don't do it, then you don't know. But it's the truth. Just because you see something on the field doesn't mean that's exactly the way it's supposed to look. Sometimes, because the coordinators don't play football anymore, or may have never played football, because they don't get an opportunity to tackle, to block, to run, to catch, to throw, whatever. They can't affect what happens once the ball is snapped. All they can do is put together a game plan. And mind you, his game plan netted several turnovers. So you can say it was a bad game plan, and you can say, oh my gosh, well, this is a bad hire. But why is it a bad hire? A lot of defenses struggle in the first game out the gate until they have a chance to see what they really have in live football situations. But that was the narrative. This new defensive coordinator that came over from Cincinnati. I'm sorry. I remember Luke Fickell, the head coach at Cincinnati, giving up boatloads of yards and touchdowns to teams. He had no problem getting the head coaching job in Cincinnati and being called like one of the next greats. Man has a game where they gave up some points, gave up some yards rushing, and now he's an awful coordinator? Nah, you don't make narratives off one game. But that's what happens. And now the perception is that he's not good at his job. Another narrative that came from that game was the McKenzie Milton miraculous comeback story. Journalists were so eager to get this story off that they didn't even bother with the truth. And here's the truth. The truth is McKenzie Milton didn't win that starting job. McKenzie Milton is not the starting quarterback at Florida State. Travis is the starting quarterback at Florida State. And so, while we're over here praising McKenzie Milton, who came into the game and did what a backup was supposed to do, right? Came in and did what a backup was supposed to do. He didn't do anything spectacular. He didn't have any touchdown passes. He led a touchdown drive. He didn't make anything happen in overtime. The man is 23 years old playing college football. It's a 23-year-old quarterback who's been in college football since 2016. It is 2021, fam. He's a 23-year-old quarterback. He should be able to step in and do the job. But he didn't do anything spectacular. He didn't do anything that would lead you to believe, well, excuse me, not you. He didn't do anything that would lead me to believe I need to just throw Travis away. Because at the end of the day, Travis was doing his thing in what he was being asked to do. Now, does he need to take care of the ball better? Absolutely. Absolutely. But I don't see us getting rid of other quarterbacks after one game when they've had a horrible game. Y'all told me Sam Howell was the number 1 overall pick. And then I watched that man go out there and look terrible. Terrible. Nobody said bench Sam Howell, bring in the backup. Y'all told me that Spencer Rattler was the next great Oklahoma quarterback. I'm looking at the backup on the bench going, man, maybe they should try to put him out there. I didn't hear anybody saying, oh, bench Spencer Rattler. It's over for him. Yet the narratives, and I mean, there were full stories that came out. And you know what that told me as a writer? That journalists had these McKenzie Milton stories written without actually realizing that McKenzie Milton wasn't the starter. So the moment McKenzie Milton got in the game, they were going to get these narratives off. In fact, they were so hell-bent on getting these narratives off, you can see it in the broadcast. The broadcasters, oh man, Milton just has something different about him. What's the something different? That he's played more college football? Absolutely. That he comes from a passing offense? Absolutely. He's not faster than Travis. He doesn't have a strong arm than Travis. So what's the thing? Oh, he just has that thing. Why is it that whenever we want to put somebody out there who is not as naturally gifted as the other person, we go to something that we can't quantify? He just has that thing. Well, you know, he led them to a touchdown. Great. They didn't score one touchdown in the game, people. That means that the other quarterback was on the field when they scored all the other touchdowns. But that's the narrative they want you to have. Well, McKenzie Milton should be starting for this team. It's the narratives. That final narrative for me comes from the same game. Mike Norvell, supposed to be this genius, offensive guy. Now, look, does the team look better this year than they did last year? Sure. But the team looked better in year 2 of Willie Taggart than they did of year 1. The results are still the same. They're losing, right? So what's the difference? It's how you are perceived. It's how they talk about you. Well, Mike Norvell, man, you know, he's got these kids going in the right direction. He's got these kids looking good. Hey, guess what Florida State's still not doing? Right? Still not winning. Still not winning. So hold him to the standards that you were holding Willie Taggart to. And I don't care about any of the personal stuff that they said Willie Taggart was engaged in or whatever, blah, blah, blah. We're talking about on the field. And on the field, what was the thought process? Was it X or was it Y? And on the field, whatever you want to say is Willie Taggart in year number 2, his team was ascending. There was progress. They got him out the paint early so that he wouldn't be able to have a winning season in his second year. Think about that. They got him out. They didn't want him. So they got him out quickly before he could show the progress from year 1 to year 2. And now we're in year 2 of the Mike Norvell era, and a very winnable game. You lose because you made some questionable decisions. Because you're not running it right down the throat of a 3-man or a 5-man box on defense. Because you call a timeout to try to get something changed and your kicker nails a 50-yarder. You call a timeout, they move it up, and now your kicker misses. That's on you. If you remove Mike Norvell's name and you put Willie Taggart into that situation, and everybody says, well, he's a bad game manager. So let's give Mike Norvell that same energy. No, why? Because we like Mike Norvell. Ooh, Mike Norvell had a fade when he was in college. He's one of them. Who's a them? You know the them. You know how we get down. These are the narratives that shape what we do. And until we start looking at these things with clearer eyes, you have to be aware of the power that media has. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Talk Spicy. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. We do this thing pretty much every morning. Rate the show, comment, agree, disagree, but whatever you do, keep it spicy. 5-star ratings are appreciated. And if you're joining me on the YouTube channel, you know what to do. Make sure that you catch me tomorrow. Like I said, my article tomorrow on The Athletic about my best bets for the week, FBS, Group of 5, and FCS. And then stay tuned for my hits on football game plans, all 32 later on in the week, and on the college football, small college football shows that come on Saturday, anywhere that you find them. Till next time, peace.